My name is Willa Rosenthal. I'm 43 years old. At 9:15 on Thanksgiving morning, my sister stood in the middle of my renovated kitchen with her camel coat still on, holding a clipboard like she had been appointed by Congress, and said, "We need to move your little breakfast table out before people get here. It makes the room look even smaller." My mother was behind her, wiping a clean spot on my quartz counter with one of my linen napkins, because she always needed something to do with her hands when she was pretending not to approve of cruelty. My cousin Paige had her phone angled toward the window, recording a slow pan of my house for her private story. I saw the screen reflected in the glass of the upper cabinet. She whispered, "Emergency Thanksgiving at Willa's dollhouse," and laughed into her scarf. Outside, a rental truck idled at the curb with 4 round tables stacked against the side. No one had asked me about tables. No one had asked me about chairs. No one had asked me if my driveway could take a delivery truck, or if my floors could take 43 people stomping in from the rain. They had decided. That was how my family loved a person. They made a decision about you, then called your resistance attitude. The house smelled like roasted garlic, rosemary, lemon polish, and wet wool. The copper pendant lights over my island were on low. A tray of sliced pears sat beside the sink. My grandmother's blue recipe box was on the counter near the stove, exactly where I had placed it before dawn, not because I needed a recipe, but because I needed a witness. My sister Meredith looked around my kitchen like she was inspecting a hotel room she planned to complain about later. "We're already compromising by being here," she said. "Please don't make this harder." I was standing by the stove with a folded piece of paper in my hand. I remember the warmth from the oven against my hip. I remember the tiny click my mother's wedding ring made against the counter. I remember my father in the doorway, quiet as always when silence protected the wrong person. My Aunt Linda said, "Willa, honey, nobody means anything by it. It's just a tight house." A tight house. 3 weeks earlier, they had called it embarrassing. 2 weeks earlier, they had said, no one wanted to eat Thanksgiving dinner in a hallway. 4 days earlier, after their private venue canceled, they had given my address to a rental company, a florist, and a bartender without telling me. Now my sister was standing in the kitchen she had mocked, demanding that I move my table, clear my shelves, and pretend gratitude because her caterer had asked for my workspace. Meredith tapped her pen against the clipboard. "The caterer said your kitchen would work, so let's not get sentimental." At that exact moment, Amelia Vaughn walked in through the back door with 2 assistants behind her, all in black catering uniforms, carrying insulated carriers marked with silver labels. Amelia was not family. That was why she saw the room clearly. She looked at Meredith, then at my mother, then at the rental men waiting outside with wet shoulders and confused faces. Then she looked at me. "Willa," she said, "before we unload anything, do you want me to review the access agreement?" Meredith laughed. "Access agreement? Amelia, come on, we're family." Amelia did not laugh. I unfolded the paper in my hand. What they did not know was that my kitchen was not their backup plan. It was a licensed private culinary workspace. It had permits, insurance riders, fire capacity limits, a signed rental agreement, a county inspection report, and security footage from my front porch, where my sister had stood 48 hours earlier and said, she should be grateful we're finally making this place useful. They did not know I had every group text where they called my home cramped, sad, childish, and beneath the Rosenthal name. They did not know the caterer they hired for their country club. Thanksgiving had been using my kitchen for private events for almost a year. They did not know Amelia had called me first. I did not raise my voice. I did not ask my mother why she could wipe my counter but never defend me at it. I did not tell my sister that the table she wanted removed had belonged to our grandmother, the same grandmother whose recipes she liked to claim on holidays. I placed the paper on the island. Then I said, "Meredith, before anyone touches my furniture, tell them exactly when I agreed to host your Thanksgiving." No one spoke. The rental truck hummed outside. One of Amelia's assistants shifted the weight of a carrier from one hand to the other. My mother stopped wiping. Meredith's mouth opened, then closed. The room went quiet in the way rooms do when everyone has been using the same lie, but nobody wants to be the first person asked to define it. This is that story. Before I take you back to the beginning, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I always wonder who is listening while folding laundry, drinking reheated coffee, or sitting in a quiet kitchen after everyone else has gone to bed. If you have ever been mocked for having less, then suddenly needed when less became useful, leave a comment. And if stories about women who were betrayed, underestimated, and quietly took their power back mean something to you, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. But before I tell you what happened in that kitchen, I need to take you back to the beginning. I grew up in a family that believed space was proof of success. Not kindness, not honesty, not whether your children could breathe around you. Space. My parents, Howard and Carol Rosenthal, bought their house on Marigold Drive in Westport, Connecticut in 1988, when my father was a regional insurance manager and my mother still wore silk scarves to grocery stores. It was a center hall colonial with 5 bedrooms, a formal dining room, a living room no one sat in except on Christmas, and a staircase my mother decorated with garland every December like a magazine was coming to photograph our lives. From the outside, the Rosenthal family looked warm and polished. My father grilled salmon on cedar planks. My mother wrote thank you notes in blue ink. My older sister Meredith won debate trophies, married a commercial real estate broker named Grant, and moved into a stone front house with a 3-car garage and a mudroom large enough to shame most apartments. My younger brother Caleb lived in Boston and worked in wealth management. He had the talent of being absent and still admired. He sent expensive wine, arrived late, and left before dishes. My mother called him busy. When I came late after work, she called me disorganized. Then there was me. Willa, middle child, 43 now, interior project coordinator for a design-build firm called Harrow & Finch, divorced, no children, owner of a 980-square-foot cottage on Ashbell Lane, with 1 full bathroom, a small front porch, built-in shelves, uneven original floors, and a kitchen I renovated 1 careful permit at a time. My family called it cute. If you have ever owned something people called cute, while meaning insufficient, you know the sound. I bought the house when I was 34, 2 years after my divorce from a man named Colin, who believed marriage meant I would make his life easier while he decided whether to become faithful. The divorce left me with $19,000, a dining table for my grandmother, a dented cast iron pan, and a nervous habit of checking locks twice. The cottage was not impressive when I first saw it. The siding needed paint. The back steps leaned. The kitchen had brown laminate counters, a fan that rattled over the stove, and cabinets with hinges so loose 1 door stayed open no matter how hard you shut it. The yard was narrow, and the driveway fit exactly 1 car if you folded in the side mirror before stepping out. But there was light. Late afternoon came through the back windows in a soft gold sheet and landed right where a kitchen island could be if someone had enough patience and not enough money to hire anyone quickly. There was a maple tree behind the garage. The front porch had room for 2 chairs. The house felt small, yes, but it did not feel mean. That mattered to me. My grandmother Ruth had once told me, a house only needs to be big enough for the truth. She said that in her kitchen while rolling pie dough with a wine bottle because her rolling pin had cracked. I was 16. My mother had been complaining that Grandma Ruth's old bungalow in Fairfield was too cluttered for proper entertaining. Grandma Ruth had dusted flour off her hands and looked at me, not my mother. A house only needs to be big enough for the truth, she said. After she died, I got her blue recipe box because no one else wanted it. Meredith wanted the silver serving tray. Caleb took the watch. My mother kept the china. I took the blue metal box with index cards, grease stains, and recipes written in my grandmother's slanted hand. Apple cake, cornbread stuffing, lemon chicken, cranberry relish, not too sweet. On the inside of the lid in black marker, Grandma Ruth had written, "Feed people who know how to sit at your table." I did not understand the sentence fully until much later. My family's first visit to my cottage was 2 weeks after I moved in. I had painted the living room warm white, hung linen curtains, and arranged grocery store flowers in a mason jar. I made coffee cake from Grandma Ruth's recipe and put it on the table with real plates. My mother walked in and said, "Oh, Willa, it's very sweet." Sweet landed like a damp towel. Meredith arrived 10 minutes later with Grant and their daughters, Sophie and Claire, who were still little then. She stood in the doorway with a bottle of wine and looked past me. "This is it?" she said. Grant nudged her softly. "What? I mean, it's charming." My father walked room to room in under 3 minutes, then came back to the kitchen and said, "Well, less to maintain." Everyone laughed except me. I poured coffee. Meredith sat at the table, looked around, and said, "You'll probably outgrow it once you start over." Start over. That was what they called a divorced woman's life, when it did not include a new husband, a bigger house, or a performance of sadness they could approve of. "I like it here," I said. My mother touched the back of one chair. "Of course you do. It suits this stage." This stage. They stayed 48 minutes. After they left, I found a crumb of coffee cake on the rug, a lipstick mark on a mug, and my mother's napkin folded into a perfect little square beside her plate. I sat at the table and put my hand on Grandma Ruth's blue recipe box. That was the first time I realized my house would always have to prove itself harder than anyone else's. The second example came the next December. I invited everyone for Sunday brunch because I wanted to create a new tradition. Not Christmas, not Thanksgiving, just a winter brunch with baked eggs, cinnamon rolls, fruit, and coffee. I woke at 6:30 to start the dough. The kitchen was still ugly then, but I had replaced the rattling fan and painted the cabinets a soft green. At 8:45, my mother called. "Sweetheart," she said, using the voice she used when she had already made a decision and wanted me to thank her for it. "We are going to meet at the club instead." "The club?" "Meredith thinks it will be easier with the girls. Your place is a little tight for all of us." I already cooked. There was a pause. I could hear my father in the background asking where his gloves were. "Oh, Willa," my mother said, "don't be dramatic. Bring the cinnamon rolls." Everyone loves those. I looked at the table, 6 place settings, cloth napkins, butter softening in a small dish, coffee brewing. "I invited everyone here," I said. "Yes, and that was thoughtful, but the club has more room." I did not go. Meredith texted me later. "Mom said you're upset. You know we weren't trying to hurt your feelings. It's just not a hosting house." Not a hosting house. I saved the text then, only because it hurt. Later, it would matter. The third example came at my niece Sophie's graduation party. Meredith hosted it in their backyard, under a white tent with hired servers, chalkboard signs, and a dessert table arranged by height. My job, assigned without asking, was to bring Grandma Ruth's lemon bars. At the party, I overheard Meredith talking to 2 neighbors near the drink station. "Willa has the recipe box," she said, "but honestly, she doesn't have the space to do much with it. Her kitchen is the size of a closet." The women laughed politely. I was holding the tray of lemon bars. The powdered sugar had dusted my sleeve. Meredith saw me and smiled too brightly. "Oh, there she is, the keeper of the sacred recipes." A woman in a blue sundress said, "You must be the sister with the little cottage." The little cottage. I set the tray down. Meredith took 1 lemon bar and said, "Don't be annoyed. People love charming." People love charming when they are not expected to live inside it. The fourth example was Thanksgiving 2019. Meredith hosted as usual. She had a dining room that seated 14, plus 2 rented tables in the sunroom for kids and overflow. She arranged place cards in gold holders and hired a bartender named Eli to pour wine beside the fireplace. My mother called it the proper family Thanksgiving. I arrived with cornbread stuffing in my grandmother's old ceramic dish. Meredith took it from my hands and whispered, "Could you put that in the kitchen? It doesn't match the table." I thought she meant the dish. Later I realized she meant me too. At dinner, Uncle Martin asked, "Willa, when are you moving into something with actual space?" I said, "I have actual space." Caleb grinned over his wine glass. "For a houseplant, maybe." My father chuckled. My mother pressed her lips together in the shape of a smile. Meredith said, "Don't tease her. She loves that place." That place. After dinner, when everyone was full and sleepy, my mother began talking about the following year. "Thanksgiving is such an undertaking," she said. "Meredith, you shouldn't always have to host." I looked up. Some small, foolish part of me still hoped. Meredith said, "Willa would offer, but we'd have to eat in shifts." Everyone laughed. I smiled because I had learned that not smiling made people discuss my sensitivity on the drive home. On the way back to Ashbel Lane, I pulled over in front of a closed florist shop and sat in my car with the engine running. My grandmother's empty stuffing dish was on the passenger seat. I remember touching the rim with my thumb and thinking, I am tired of carrying food into rooms where I am not allowed to belong. Still, I kept going. That is what people misunderstand. Women do not tolerate disrespect because they cannot see it. Most of the time, we see it perfectly. We tolerate it because leaving the table means giving up the small hope that one day someone will look up and make room. I wanted my family to love me in my own house. Not admire it, not envy it, not apologize for underestimating it. Just sit down and stop measuring. The fifth example came after the renovation. I started planning the kitchen in 2020. Not because of the pandemic, though being trapped inside made every bad cabinet louder. I had been saving for years, taking side projects through Harrow and Finch, managing other people's kitchens while coming home to my own cracked laminate, and dreaming in floor plans. I did not make the kitchen bigger in the way my family understood bigger. I made it work. I took down the wall between the kitchen and the narrow back porch, reinforced the floor, added windows, installed a 6-burner range, double wall ovens, a deep farmhouse sink, a prep sink in the island, under-counter refrigeration, commercial-grade ventilation that looked residential, pull-out pantry drawers, and warm oak cabinets that went all the way to the ceiling. I handled permits properly: electrical, plumbing, structural, ventilation, final inspection. The project took 13 months and cost $82, $600, paid from savings, a small design bonus, and one low-interest loan I took in my name alone. I chose honed quartz because marble stains and I had no interest in being precious. I kept Grandma Ruth's dining table, sanded it, sealed it, and placed it under the window where the afternoon light came in. When it was finished, I cried privately, standing barefoot on the new tile at 6 in the morning with coffee in my hand. Not because it was fancy, because it was mine. My family came over for the first time after the renovation on a Saturday in May. I made lunch: roasted chicken salad, herb potatoes, green beans, and strawberry shortcake. I put the blue recipe box on the shelf above the counter where I could see it. My mother stepped inside and froze. For 1 second, she saw it. I watched her see the light, the island, the ovens, the careful storage, the way the old cottage had not grown bigger but had become more itself. Then she recovered. "Well," she said, "you certainly used every inch." Meredith walked around the island and ran her hand over the counter. "It's nice, very efficient." "Efficient," Grant said. "This range is serious." Meredith glanced at him. "For a house this size, it's almost too much." I took plates from the cabinet. "It suits me." Caleb opened one of the pantry drawers without asking. "You could host a cooking show in here. as long as the audience stayed outside. My father laughed. I looked at the chicken salad. It had tarragon and toasted almonds because Meredith liked both. At lunch, my niece Claire said, "Aunt Willa, this kitchen is prettier than ours." Meredith corrected her immediately. "Ours is bigger, honey." "Not better, bigger." Claire looked confused. I left her for that. After they left, I wiped the counter once. Not because it was dirty. Because my mother had done it first, and I wanted my hand to be the last one on my own surface. That summer, something unexpected happened. Amelia Vaughn, owner of Vaughn Table Catering, came into Harrow and Finch for a consultation on renovating her prep facility. She catered private dinners, weddings, corporate retreats, and high-end family holidays for people who liked to say they wanted something intimate while inviting 70 people. She was 50, tall, sharp-eyed, with silver hair pulled back, and the posture of a woman who had carried more trays than opinions. She knew what kitchens needed, not what looked pretty in photographs, what worked when 6 people were moving fast and someone had put the shallots in the wrong cooler. During the consultation, she complained about temporary kitchen rentals. "Everyone advertises prep space," she said. "Then you arrive and find one oven, bad lighting, and a sink full of houseplants." I said, "You need a residential-style space with professional flow." She looked at me. Exactly. I showed her photos from client projects. Then, because we were talking through a small space problem, I showed one picture of my own kitchen. Just one. Amelia leaned closer. "Whose kitchen is that?" "Mine." She studied the photo. "That is not a hobby kitchen." "No." "Did you permit the ventilation?" "Yes." "Prep sink?" "Yes." "Separate hand wash?" "Technically, yes. The powder room is off the mud entry, and the prep sink has its own line. I have the inspection file." She looked at me for a long moment. "Do you ever rent it?" I laughed. "My family thinks it's too small for a salad." "I didn't ask about your family." That was how Cedar Spoon Kitchen began. Not as a restaurant, not as a public event space. Just a licensed private culinary workspace available for limited prep rental, recipe testing, small private dinners, and charity meal assembly. Amelia helped me understand the insurance requirements. I worked with the town. I got a zoning clarification for limited-use culinary workspace by appointment. No retail traffic, no public seating, capacity restrictions, parking restrictions, proper waste handling, fire extinguisher inspection, and liability coverage. It was boring. It was beautiful. Boring paperwork is often the lock on a door people thought they could kick open. By the following spring, Amelia used my kitchen twice a month for overflow prep. A cookbook author rented it for a photo shoot. A local nonprofit used it to assemble holiday meals for seniors. I did not advertise publicly. I did not tell my family. Not because it was secret in a shameful way, but because I was tired of offering them anything new to diminish. Cedar Spoon Kitchen had a binder. Of course it did. Permits. Insurance. Inspection reports. Rental agreements. Cleaning checklists. Capacity limits. Access logs. Invoices. Security camera notices. Emergency contacts. On the cover, I placed a small sticker with a drawing of a spoon, because softness and documentation can share a room. The first time Amelia finished a prep session in my kitchen, she stood by the island and said, "This space is better than half the kitchens I've worked in at estates 10 times this size." I thought of Meredith saying efficient. I thought of Caleb saying the audience could stay outside. I thought of my mother wiping the counter. "Thank you," I said. Amelia looked at me. "You don't have to sound surprised." But I was. Kindness can be startling when you have been trained to expect correction. Thanksgiving of 2024 was supposed to be at Meredith's house. Then, in early September, Meredith announced she was tired of hosting. She did it in the family group chat. Meredith, I am officially retiring from Thanksgiving duty this year. My floors cannot take another gravy incident. Caleb, a moment of silence for the floors. Mom, don't be silly, Meredith. You do it beautifully. Meredith, exactly. Too beautifully. Someone else can enjoy the privilege. I saw the messages while standing in line at the pharmacy. An older man ahead of me was arguing about a coupon. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. I typed, I can host if everyone is comfortable with a smaller table. I stared at the sentence for a full minute before sending it. Then I sent it. No one answered for 7 minutes. Caleb finally replied. Caleb, define smaller. Meredith, Willa, that's sweet, but no, we are not doing Thanksgiving in shifts. Mom, your house is lovely for every day, honey. Thanksgiving needs breathing room. Aunt Linda, maybe a restaurant? Paige, I vote somewhere with parking. I stood in the pharmacy line with a bottle of vitamins in my hand and felt something old and familiar settle over me. Not shock, not even pain exactly. More like a coat I hated but knew how to wear. I typed, understood. My mother replied with a heart. A heart can be a period when someone wants credit for gentleness. 2 days later, Meredith announced she had solved everything. She booked the Riverton Conservatory, a private event venue attached to an old estate outside Norwalk. Glass walls, heated terrace, valet parking, elegant but relaxed. According to the website, Amelia's company, Vaughn Table Catering, would handle the meal. That detail made me pause. Vaughn Table Catering. Amelia texted me the same afternoon. Interesting development. Are you attending a Rosenthal Thanksgiving at Riverton this year? I wrote back, unfortunately. Amelia replied, I'm catering it. I'll keep the stuffing honest. I smiled for the first time that day. I did not tell my family I knew Amelia. I did not tell them she rented my kitchen. I did not tell them that Cedar Spoon Kitchen was already on her approved prep list for private overflow. Some information deserves to stay with people who respect it. By October, the family group chat became a performance of Meredith's event planning. Meredith, final head count currently 38. Mom, that seems high. Paige, I invited Colin and Jess because they were alone last year. Caleb, I may bring Nora. Meredith, fine, but no surprise guests after November 1st. I watched the number climb. 38, 41, 43. My little house could not host 43 people for a seated dinner, and I had never pretended it could. But my kitchen could prep food for 43 with the right schedule, the right staff, and the right respect. That distinction would matter later. On November 5th, Meredith sent another message. Meredith, everyone please send any dietary notes by Friday. The caterer is being very particular. I nearly laughed into my coffee. Amelia was particular the way breaks are particular. People resent them until they need them. On November 7th, my mother called me at 7:20 in the evening. Willa, she said, I want you to not feel left out. I was chopping onions for soup. That is quite an opening. She ignored that. Meredith is overwhelmed with the venue, and I know you offered to host. I don't want you thinking we rejected you personally. You rejected my house. Well, sweetheart, your house is part of you. I put the knife down. She continued. Your home is charming. It really is. It's just not appropriate for the whole family holiday. Appropriate? You know what I mean. I do. She sighed. Don't make this into something. There it was, the family motto, unofficial but consistent. Don't make this into something. Meaning, do not identify the thing we made. I said, I'm not. Good. Bring the cranberry relish in Grandma Ruth's bowl. People expect it. I looked at the blue recipe box on my shelf. No, I said. Silence. No? I'm not bringing food to a catered event. Oh, Willa. I'll attend as a guest. My mother's voice sharpened. Your grandmother's recipes belong to this family. The recipe box is in my kitchen. That is not the point. It is to me. She was quiet long enough that I heard a cabinet close on her end. Finally, she said, "You are becoming very rigid." I picked up the knife again. "No," I said. "I am becoming very accurate." We ended politely. That night, I took out the cedar spoon binder and checked my November bookings. Amelia had reserved 2 prep windows earlier that month for other events. Nothing Thanksgiving week. Good. I wanted my kitchen quiet. The venue canceled on November 20th. A sprinkler line burst in the Riverton Conservatory during a private event setup. Water damaged part of the glass hall, the electrical inspection had to be redone, and all events for the week were canceled. It was real. Not Meredith's fault. Not at first. The family group chat exploded at 6:12 in the morning. Meredith. Emergency. Riverton canceled. Burst pipe. We need a new plan. Mom. Oh no, Paige. Are you serious? Caleb. Hotel ballroom? Meredith. I've called 6 places. Nothing for Thanksgiving. Aunt Linda, restaurant private room? Meredith. Everywhere is booked or awful. Mom. Willa offered before. There it was. My name. Placed on the table like a spare folding chair. Meredith did not respond for 12 minutes. Then she wrote privately to me. Meredith, I know this is last minute, but we may need to use your place. Use. Not gather at. Not accept your offer. Not ask if you would still be willing. Use. I replied, my house cannot host 43 people for a seated Thanksgiving dinner. She responded immediately, Meredith, obviously not seated. We can do stations. People can circulate. Me, no Meredith. Willa, don't be difficult. The caterer thinks your kitchen might work. I stared at that sentence. The caterer thinks your kitchen might work. My phone buzzed again, but this time it was Amelia. Call me when you can. I called her from my office parking lot. It was cold, and the bare branches near the sidewalk scratched against each other in the wind. Amelia answered on the first ring. Before your family turns this into a circus, she said, I need to tell you what happened. I saw the venue canceled. Yes, Meredith is panicking. She asked about alternative prep spaces and mentioned your house as if it were an obvious solution. I told her I know your kitchen and that it could support controlled prep. Controlled prep. Willa, I did not say your home could host 43 relatives, a bartender, and a rented sound system. A sound system? She asked. I closed my eyes. Amelia continued. I told her I would speak to you directly because Cedar Spoon is your facility, not hers. Facility. I looked at my reflection in the car window. Tired eyes, gray wool coat, hair pinned badly because I had rushed that morning. A woman sitting inside a life her family still treated like an overflow room. What are the options? I asked. Amelia's voice shifted into professional mode. Your kitchen could be used for final prep and staging for a transported meal. Your dining area can handle 12 comfortably, maybe 14 if people behave. Your driveway cannot support service vehicles plus guests. Your permit does not allow a public event or large private service beyond capacity. If they need 40 plus guests, we need another dining location. Church hall, community center, firehouse banquet room, somewhere with restrooms and parking. They want my house. They want your kitchen and your compliance. They are pretending those are the same thing. I sat with that. Then I said, put everything in writing. Amelia did not ask why. She said already drafting. By noon, I had an email from Amelia. Subject, emergency Thanksgiving service options. It listed 3 options. Option 1, cancel catering services, partial refund subject to contract. Option 2, reduced private dinner at Willa Rosenthal's residence for no more than 14 guests, subject to property owner approval. Option 3, use Cedar Spoon Kitchen for controlled prep and staging, then transport meal to an alternate approved venue with proper insurance, access, and service setup. At the bottom, Amelia wrote, "No event setup may occur at Cedar Spoon Kitchen or Willa Rosenthal's residence without written owner consent." I printed it. Then I called the Maple Street Community Hall. It was not glamorous. It was a brick building near the library with a polished floor, a small stage, fluorescent lights, a commercial warming kitchen, and a parking lot big enough for the guest list. The hall manager, a retired school secretary named Denise Pappas, told me they had Thanksgiving available because their usual group had moved to Saturday. "What time do you need?" she asked. I looked at Amelia's email. "Midday until 6, I said. "For how many?" 43, possibly. "We have tables, chairs, restrooms, and a working dishwasher. No open flame. Certificate of insurance required." Perfect. I placed a hold in my name with a refundable deposit of $600. Then I waited. Meredith did not call me until 4:38. I was at home, standing in my kitchen, watching rain slide down the back windows. She began without greeting. "I hear you and Amelia are coordinating. Amelia called me because you gave her my house as a solution." I mentioned it. "You told her the caterer could use my kitchen." "Can she?" "Yes, under conditions." Meredith exhaled like I had finally become useful. "Great, then we'll make it work." "No, listen carefully. My kitchen can be used for prep. My house cannot host 43 people. Willa, we do not have time for your insecurity." I looked at Grandma Ruth's recipe box. "Insecurity?" "You know what I mean. Every time the house comes up, you get defensive. Because you insult it." "Oh my God." She laughed, but not with humor. "We all know it's small. That's not an insult. It's a fact." "It is a fact you weaponize." She went quiet for a moment. Then, colder, "Fine. What do you want? An apology ceremony? We have 8 days before Thanksgiving." I reserved Maple Street Community Hall. Silence. "You did what?" "I put a hold on it. Your catered meal can be served there. Amelia can use my kitchen for controlled prep if we sign a proper agreement. Guests can eat at the hall." That is not the vibe. The vibe was canceled with the sprinkler line. Mom will hate a community hall. Mom is welcome to book something else. Meredith lowered her voice. "You are enjoying this." "No," I said. "I am documenting it." She gave a small snort. "Documenting? Of course you are." I said, "I will forward the hall information and Amelia's terms." "Willa, stop acting like a landlord. This is Thanksgiving." "No," I said, "this is my house." She hung up. That night, the family group chat changed tone. Meredith, "Willa found a community hall, but I'm still exploring better options." Mom, "A hall?" Paige, "Like folding chairs?" Caleb, "At least there's parking." Meredith, "We may still be able to use Willa's kitchen and spread out at her place." Me, "No. My house is not available for a 43-person event." Paige, "Willa, nobody is trying to move in." Aunt Linda, "Could people just rotate?" Me, "No, Mom. Honey, this is starting to sound ungenerous. I read that word twice. Ungenerous. The woman whose kitchen they needed was ungenerous because she did not also offer her floors, bathroom, furniture, driveway, and dignity." I put the phone down beside the sink. At 8:56, Amelia forwarded me an email Meredith had sent her. Meredith wrote, "Willa is being sensitive about capacity. We can probably stage at her house and use the yard. Please proceed as if Ashbel Lane is the base plan while I smooth things over. Amelia's response was perfect. Meredith, I cannot proceed as if Willa Rosenthal's private residence is available without Willa Rosenthal's written authorization. I printed both. On November 22nd, a florist called me. Hi, this is Eden and Bloom confirming delivery for Rosenthal Thanksgiving at 14 Ashbel Lane. I was standing in the grocery store comparing butter prices. I did not order flowers, I said. Oh, the woman said. I have Meredith Bennett as the contact, but this address as delivery site. Cancel delivery to this address unless you receive written approval from me. The woman's voice changed. Are you the property owner? Yes. Understood. I asked her to email me the order confirmation. She did. On November 23rd, a rental company left a voicemail confirming 8 round tables, 48 Chiavari chairs, 2 heat lamps, and 1 portable bar for delivery Wednesday afternoon to Ashbel Lane. I saved the voicemail. I called back. A man named Trevor answered. He sounded young and tired. I said, "This is Willa Rosenthal, owner of the Ashbel Lane property. I did not authorize this delivery." He clicked around on a keyboard. Looks like Meredith Bennett placed the order. She does not own the property. Oh. No items may be delivered here without my signed approval. He paused. She said it was a family residence. It is my residence. Another pause. Would you like me to note the account? Yes, and please email me the delivery order showing the address. He did. By the time the leaves had mostly fallen from the maple behind my garage, I had a folder labeled Thanksgiving. Inside were screenshots, emails, voicemails, the hall reservation, Amelia's access agreement, florist confirmation, rental order, my house permit, occupancy note, insurance rider, and 1 printed page from the family group chat where my mother wrote, "Willa's place is sweet, but we cannot pretend it is suitable." I did not show the folder to my family. I kept making soup. I kept going to work. I kept answering messages with short, clear sentences. No, my house is not available for guest seating beyond agreed capacity. Yes, the community hall remains available. No, vendors may not deliver to my property without written authorization. Yes, Amelia may use Cedar Spoon Kitchen under signed terms. Meredith hated the terms. On November 24th, she came to my house without warning. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was polishing the copper handles on the lower cabinets because cooking leaves fingerprints, and I liked the evidence of use gone before Monday. The doorbell camera chimed. I looked at my phone and saw Meredith on the porch in a cream coat, holding sunglasses, though the sky was gray. I let her ring twice before opening the door. She stepped inside without being invited and looked around. "Still smells like onions," she said. "I made stock." She walked to the kitchen. She always walked through my house as if there were no private rooms, only smaller public ones. "We need to talk." Then talk. She placed her handbag on my island. I moved it to a stool. She noticed. "For God's sake, Willa. Bags go on seats, not food surfaces." She looked at the kitchen, really looked this time, and I saw calculation. "You know," she said, "this could actually be beautiful if you stopped being so rigid." It is beautiful now. I mean, for Thanksgiving. Candles, stations, flowers near the window. We could put desserts on that table. That table is not being moved. It's a table. It was Grandma Ruth's. Meredith rolled her eyes. Grandma Ruth would want the family together. I touched the edge of the counter. Grandma Ruth wrote that people should know how to sit at your table. What? Nothing. She leaned forward, palms on the island. Listen, the hall is depressing. Mom is upset. Grant thinks I should just cancel. Caleb is being useless. I need you to be flexible. You need my kitchen. Yes, fine, we need your kitchen. And my house? She hesitated half a second. We need a place that doesn't look like a school fundraiser. I laughed once. She straightened. See, this is what I mean. You enjoy being offended. Meredith, you are standing in my house asking to use it while insulting it. I am being honest. So am I. No. Her jaw tightened. You have held on to this house like it's some badge of moral superiority. It's small, Willa. That doesn't make you noble. No, I said. Paying for it does. She stared at me. I continued. Renovating it does. Maintaining it does. Knowing its limits does. Saying no when people try to exceed them does. She picked up her handbag. You should be grateful we're even considering it. There it was, clean and bright. I looked toward the small black circle of the security camera mounted near the back door. It captured audio in the kitchen when the system was active during vendor visits. Meredith knew about the porch cameras. She did not know about the interior camera notice posted near the mud entry for Cedar Spoon sessions. She had walked past it without reading. I want you to leave, I said. She laughed. Gladly. At the front door, she turned back. This is why people don't ask you for things, Willa. You make everything about respect. I said, that says more than you meant it to. She left. The recording saved automatically to my vendor security file because the system had been armed for a scheduled delivery earlier that day. I downloaded it. I told myself I might never use it. But I saved it. 2 days before Thanksgiving, the rental truck came anyway. I was in my office when the doorbell alert appeared. A white truck backed awkwardly toward my driveway. 2 men got out, one holding a clipboard under his jacket against the rain. I called through the doorbell speaker. This is the property owner. Do not unload. The man looked up, startled. We have a delivery. It is not authorized. He checked the clipboard. Rosenthal Thanksgiving? Not at this address. We were told the owner approved. The owner is speaking to you. He stepped back from the porch. Okay, sorry, ma'am. After they left, my mother called. Willa, why are rental people saying you refused the tables? Because I refused the tables. Her voice was tight. You are humiliating your sister. No, Mom, I am protecting my house. For heaven's sake, they're tables. They are unauthorized vendor deliveries. You sound like a permit office. Thank you. She inhaled sharply. Do not be cute. I'm not. Meredith has worked herself sick over this holiday. Meredith gave vendors my address after I said no. She was trying to save Thanksgiving. She was trying to use my house without permission. My mother lowered her voice. Do you know what this looks like? I looked around my office. Samples of tile leaned against one wall. A client's cabinet elevations were spread across my desk. Outside my window, rain ran down the glass in thin lines. Yes, I said. It looks like I finally mean what I say. My mother did not speak for a moment. Then she said, Your grandmother would be disappointed. That was the sentence she saved for when ordinary guilt failed. I thought of the blue recipe box. Feed people who know how to sit at your table. No, I said. I don't think she would. I hung up first. My hands shook after. I am not going to pretend they did not. Calm does not mean untouched. It means you choose what your hands do while they shake. I printed the call log. On the morning of Thanksgiving, I woke at 5:40. The house was quiet. The sky outside was the color of pewter, and rain tapped lightly against the kitchen windows. I made coffee in my old French press and stood barefoot on the tile while it steeped. I took Grandma Ruth's blue recipe box from the shelf and opened it. Cornbread stuffing. Cranberry relish, not too sweet. Apple cake. I had cooked all 3, but not for the whole family. Amelia had her menu. Maple Street Hall had it set up. My dishes were for the 12 people I had invited to eat at my table later that evening, after the larger meal was over. Elaine from work, Mrs. Pappas, the hall manager, because she was staying late, Amelia and her 2 assistants if they wanted, my nieces if Meredith allowed them, my father if he found courage. Maybe no one else. A small table is not a failure when every seat is honest. At 7:30, Amelia arrived with her first assistant, Jonah. They came through the back entrance as planned. We reviewed the access checklist. They signed in. They placed carriers on the stainless prep cart I used for cedar spoon sessions. Amelia looked at the blue recipe box. "Is that the famous one?" "Yes." "Good. We have supervision." By 8:20, the kitchen was moving with controlled energy. Jonah chopped herbs. Amelia checked turkey temperatures. Her second assistant, Mara, arrived with labeled containers. The ovens warmed rolls and sides. The prep sink ran. The ventilation hummed quietly above the range. Nothing felt cramped. Every inch had a purpose. At 8:52, my father arrived alone. That surprised me. He stood on the porch in his old raincoat, holding a paper bag. I opened the door. "Your mother is coming with Meredith," he said. I assumed. He lifted the bag. I brought coffee cake. My father did not bake. That meant he had stopped somewhere. "Thank you." He stepped inside and looked toward the kitchen. Amelia was moving trays with the calm speed of a person who had no time for family weather. Dad took off his hat. "This is quite an operation." "Yes." He stood there, rain on his shoulders. "Your grandmother would have liked this kitchen." I looked at him. He looked away first. "She would have," he said again. It was not an apology. My father rarely gave those. But it was a small truth placed carefully on the floor between us. I accepted it by taking the paper bag. At 9:15, Meredith arrived with my mother, Aunt Linda, Paige, Grant, and 2 rental men who had apparently been redirected to try again once Willa calmed down. That was how we began. My sister in the kitchen. My mother wiping a clean counter, Paige recording, rental truck outside, Meredith telling me to move Grandma Ruth's table, and Amelia asking whether I wanted her to review the access agreement. I did. Amelia placed her carrier on the prep cart and took out her tablet. Meredith crossed her arms. "This is ridiculous." Amelia's voice stayed professional. For clarity, Vaughn Table Catering's revised Thanksgiving service agreement lists Cedar Spoon Kitchen as a prep and staging location only. It does not list this residence as the dining venue. My mother blinked. "Cedar what?" "Cedar Spoon Kitchen," Amelia said. "Willa's licensed private culinary workspace." Paige lowered her phone. Aunt Linda looked at the range, then at me. "Licensed?" Meredith said, "It's her house." "It is my house," I said. "And Cedar Spoon Kitchen operates here under limited use approval." My father stood in the doorway behind them. He looked at the floor, then up at me. Meredith laughed, but it cracked at the edge. "Willa, nobody cares what little name you gave your kitchen." Amelia looked at her. "The insurance carrier cares." That sentence did more than anything I could have said. Amelia continued, "So does the town. So do my business liability terms. So do the vendor agreements." My mother set the napkin down. "Willa," she said carefully, "what is happening?" I picked up the folder from the island and opened it. What is happening is simple. My kitchen is available to Amelia for controlled prep, because we signed an access agreement. The Thanksgiving meal for the full guest list will be served at Maple Street Community Hall, where I reserved proper space, parking, restrooms, and tables. Meredith's face flushed. "We are not taking our family Thanksgiving to a community hall. You may cancel if you prefer." "Cancel?" My mother said the word like I had suggested abandoning children on a roadside. Aunt Linda said, "But everyone is coming." "Yes," I said. which is why I reserved the hall. Meredith slammed the clipboard onto my island. The sound made Mara pause by the oven. You had no right to take over. I looked at the clipboard. You had no right to give vendors my address. Grant stepped forward. Can we all just calm down? I turned to him. Grant, your name is on the rental order too. He stopped. Meredith looked at him. You signed that? He said, you told me Willa agreed. There it was, the first seam opening. I removed the rental order from the folder and slid it across the island. 8 round tables, 48 chairs, heat lamps, portable bar. Delivery to my house, authorized by Meredith Bennett and Grant Bennett. No approval from property owner. My mother looked at Meredith. Meredith said, because we were going to talk it through. We did talk, I said. I said no. You said no to everything. I said yes to prep. I said yes to helping secure the hall. I said no to being overridden in my own home. Paige muttered, this is so dramatic. I looked at her. Paige, would you like me to play the video where you called my house a dollhouse on my porch? Her face went still. Aunt Linda turned. You said what? Paige slipped her phone into her coat pocket. I was joking. Were you joking when you posted it in the cousin chat too? I asked. The room shifted again. My mother's eyes narrowed slightly. Not at Paige. At me. She was beginning to understand I had not arrived at this moment empty-handed. Meredith said, you have been collecting things? Yes. That is sick. No, I said, it is useful. Amelia did not move. Jonah stared very hard at a bundle of parsley. My father cleared his throat. Maybe we should hear Willa out. My mother turned toward him, surprised by the sound of his spine. Meredith said, Dad, please. He looked at her. No, I think we should. I opened the folder to the printed group chat. On September 9th, I offered to host Thanksgiving at a smaller table. Meredith wrote, Number, we are not doing Thanksgiving in shifts. Mom wrote, your house is lovely for every day, honey. Thanksgiving needs breathing room. Paige wrote, I vote somewhere with parking. Aunt Linda looked down. I continued. On November 20th, after Riverton canceled, Meredith wrote privately that she might need to use my place. When I said my house could not host 43 people, she wrote, don't be difficult. The caterer thinks your kitchen might work. Meredith's lips pressed together. Later that night, she emailed Amelia and wrote, Willa is being sensitive about capacity. We can probably stage at her house and use the yard. Please proceed as if Ashbell Lane is the base plan while I smooth things over. Grant turned to Meredith. You told me she agreed. Meredith whispered, I was handling it. No, I said. You were counting on me being too embarrassed to stop you in front of everyone. My mother said, Willa, enough. I looked at her. The word had worked for 43 years. Enough. Stop naming it. Stop making people uncomfortable. Stop turning the room toward the truth. This time, it did not work. Not yet, I said. My mother's face changed. I took out one final page. This is the access agreement Amelia mentioned. It states that Cedar Spoon Kitchen is available only for controlled prep and staging, no guest dining beyond owner-approved capacity, no unauthorized vendors, no event setup, no alcohol service on site, and no alteration of furniture or fixtures. Meredith said, It's Thanksgiving, not a federal case. Amelia answered before I could. It becomes a liability case very quickly when people ignore property terms. My Aunt Linda lowered herself into one of the kitchen chairs. I need to sit down. Meredith snapped, Do not sit there. We need to move that table. My voice stayed quiet. No one is moving that table. The room stopped again, but differently this time. I placed my hand on the back of Grandma Ruth's chair. This table belonged to Grandma Ruth. The recipe box belonged to Grandma Ruth. The cranberry relish you all expect every year came from this kitchen today. Not because anyone was entitled to it, but because I chose to make it. For years, this family has mocked my house and then asked for food from it. You called it cramped. You called it embarrassing. You called it a dollhouse. You said it was not appropriate. Then the moment your venue canceled, you tried to turn it into a service entrance. My mother looked down. Meredith's eyes shone, but not with sorrow. With anger. You are punishing us, she said. No, I said. I am distinguishing between help and surrender. That was the sentence that stayed. Even Amelia looked up. Outside, one of the rental men knocked lightly on the back door. Jonah went to speak with him. A moment later, the truck pulled away. Meredith watched it leave through the rain-streaked window. Her clipboard sat useless on the island. My father took one step into the kitchen. Where is the hall? He asked. Maple Street, I said. Denise Pappas is opening at 11. Amelia's team will transport the food at noon. Dinner can be served at 1:30. He nodded. My mother said very quietly, You arranged all of that? Yes. For everyone? For the guests who were invited in good faith? I said, not for the fantasy that my house could be insulted into expanding. Aunt Linda wiped her eyes with a tissue. I didn't know about the messages. You were in some of them, I said. She looked at me. I did not soften it. She folded the tissue in half and looked away. Meredith picked up her clipboard. Her hand was shaking. What do you want, Willa? Do you want us to stand here and clap for your kitchen? No. Then what? I looked at my mother first, then Meredith, then Paige, then Grant. I want everyone out of my house except the catering staff and the people I personally invited to stay. The meal is at Maple Street Hall. If you want to attend, go there. If you want to tell people why the location changed, tell them the truth. Riverton canceled, Willa found a legal alternative, and Willa's house was never available for takeover. Meredith laughed in disbelief. You're kicking us out on Thanksgiving? No, I said. I am sending you to the venue I reserved after yours canceled. My father set his hat on the small bench by the door. I'll help at the hall, he said. My mother turned to him. Howard! He looked at her. Carol, she fixed it. That sentence landed harder than any insult. She fixed it. Not Meredith, not Mom, not the family committee of opinion. Me. Willa, with the tight house. Willa, with the embarrassing cottage. Willa, with the kitchen they needed and the paperwork they ignored. My mother's eyes filled. I knew those tears. They were not always false, but they were often timed. I never meant to hurt you, she said. I looked at the napkin she had used to wipe my clean counter. Yes, I said. You did. You just thought I would keep feeding everyone anyway. She inhaled sharply. Meredith said, I'm not doing this. Then don't. She left first. Grant followed after glancing at me with something like apology, but not enough courage to make it useful. Paige slipped out behind them, face red, phone silent. Aunt Linda paused at the doorway and said, I'm sorry, Willa. I nodded. Not forgiveness. Receipt. My mother stayed a moment longer. This is not how family behaves, she said. I looked around my kitchen. Amelia checking the oven. Mara labeling containers. Jonah wiping the prep counter. My father standing near Grandma Ruth's table with his hands in his pockets. The blue recipe box open on the island. No, I said. It is how family gets corrected. She left. At 11:40, I went to Maple Street Community Hall. I drove behind Amelia's catering van with cranberry relish in the passenger seat and my grandmother's recipe box in a tote bag on the floor. The rain had softened to mist. Leaves stuck to the windshield until the wipers pushed them aside. The hall looked exactly like a hall. Beige walls, folding tables, metal chairs, a bulletin board with flyers for blood pressure screenings and a winter coat drive. It did not look like Riverton Conservatory. It did not look like Meredith's house. It looked like a place built for people to gather without pretending they were above the floor they stood on. Denise Pappas had already unlocked the kitchen and turned on the lights. She wore a red cardigan and sneakers. "Family holiday?" she asked me. "Yes." She looked at my face for half a second. "I'll make more coffee." By 1 o'clock, guests began arriving. Not all of them knew the whole story. Some had heard venue issue. Some had heard last-minute change. Some had heard, I later learned, that I had refused to open my house because I was being Willa. That phrase made me smile when Paige's boyfriend said it accidentally near the coffee station. Being Willa. Careful. Exact. Unavailable for trampling. There were worse things. Meredith arrived at 1:20 with her coat buttoned and her face composed. My mother walked beside her, chin lifted. Grant carried pies. Caleb came in late, as expected, holding expensive wine. Though the hall permit did not allow alcohol, he looked around and said, "Well, this is humble." My father, who was placing rolls on a table, said, "It's warm and paid for." Caleb blinked. I almost laughed. Amelia's team served beautifully. Turkey with herb gravy, roasted squash, green beans with almonds, mashed potatoes, cornbread stuffing, cranberry relish in Grandma Ruth's bowl, apple cake, pumpkin tartlets, coffee. People ate. That is the part my family forgot in all their performance. People mostly want to be fed, seated, and treated kindly. The chandeliers were never the meal. At 2:15, my mother stood with a glass of sparkling cider and tapped it with a fork. Everyone quieted. I was near the side table, refilling water glasses because motion helped me stay calm. My mother smiled her public smile. "Well," she said, "this is not the Thanksgiving we planned, but family always finds a way." Meredith's shoulders relaxed slightly. My mother continued, "We owe Meredith so much for trying to salvage such a difficult situation." My father looked at me. Amelia, across the room, stopped moving. My mother said, "And of course, Willa helped in her own way." In her own way. The phrase was a crumb tossed under the table. I put the water pitcher down, not hard, just firmly enough that the nearest conversation stopped. My father said, "Carol." But I was already walking to the front of the room. I did not take the glass from my mother. I did not ask for attention. The room already had it. I stood beside her and said, "Before we eat dessert, I want to correct something." Meredith closed her eyes. I looked at the room. Aunts, cousins, nieces, neighbors Meredith had invited. Caleb's girlfriend Nora, Amelia's staff near the kitchen door, Denise by the coffee urn. Witnesses, though most did not know that was their role. Riverton Conservatory canceled because of a sprinkler failure, I said. That part is true. After that, my house was discussed as a backup without my consent. Vendors were given my address after I said no rental furniture was ordered to my home. The caterer was told to proceed as if my residence was the base plan. That was not true. My mother whispered, "Willa, not here." I continued. My kitchen was available only because it is a licensed prep space called Cedar Spoon Kitchen, and because Amelia and I signed an access agreement. My house was never available as a venue. This hall is available because I reserved it, paid the deposit, and provided the required paperwork so everyone would still have Thanksgiving dinner. No one spoke. Caleb looked at Meredith. "Is that true?" Meredith stared at me. Grant said quietly, "Yes." That one word did what my folder could not have done alone. My niece Sophie looked from her mother to me. She was 20 now, old enough to understand the room, and young enough to still be disappointed by adults. She said, "Mom, you told us Aunt Willa changed her mind." Meredith's face crumpled in anger. I was trying to keep the holiday from falling apart. Amelia stepped forward, not dramatically, just enough. Willa kept it from falling apart, she said. My mother's face flushed. Caleb set down his wine bag. Wait, Willa paid for the hall? I paid the deposit, I said. The catering costs remain under Meredith's contract. Meredith looked relieved for half a second, then embarrassed that relief had shown. Aunt Linda stood slowly. Willa, I owe you an apology. My mother gave her a sharp look. Aunt Linda ignored it. I repeated things I shouldn't have. About the house. About it being too small. I'm sorry. Paige stared at her plate. Then my father stood. He was not a speech man. He hated attention, unless someone else was receiving it, and he could stand nearby looking proud. But he stood, cleared his throat, and looked directly at me. Your grandmother did say a house only had to be big enough for the truth, he said. My throat tightened, but I did not let the room have my tears. He continued, I should have remembered that sooner. My mother sat down. Meredith looked at the floor. That was the public payoff. Not a shouting match, not a ruined meal, not a dramatic exit, just the truth placed gently in the center of a room that had been decorated for denial. Dessert was quieter. People still ate. They always do. Forks moved. Coffee poured. Children asked for seconds. The human body remains practical, even when pride is collapsing. After the meal, Sophie found me near the kitchen pass-through. Aunt Willa, she said, can I come see Cedar Spoon sometime? I smiled. Yes. Mom said your kitchen was too small. I know. Sophie looked back toward Meredith, who was packing pies into a box with unnecessary force. It didn't look small this morning, she said. It isn't small, I told her. It is specific. She nodded like that made perfect sense. Maybe it did. Meredith did not speak to me for 6 weeks. My mother lasted 9 days. She called on a Saturday morning while I was cleaning the stovetop. I let it ring twice before answering. Willa, she said, I've been thinking about Thanksgiving. I waited. I feel that you embarrassed Meredith. There it was. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I should have defended you. Not, I did not realize how long we had been cruel. You embarrassed Meredith. I looked at the blue recipe box on the shelf. Mom, I said Meredith gave vendors my address and lied about my consent. She was desperate. She was disrespectful. You could have handled it privately. I tried. Privately, she kept going. My mother sighed. You have always needed to prove a point. No, I said. I have always needed the point to be acknowledged. She did not like that. We spoke for 12 minutes. She circled. I stayed still. She said Meredith was humiliated. I said Meredith had witnesses because she created a public problem. She said family forgives. I said forgiveness does not include surrendering property. She said Grandma Ruth would hate the division. I said Grandma Ruth knew how to lock her pantry when people took things without asking. That made my mother quiet. Finally, she said, I don't know how to talk to you anymore. I looked around my kitchen, sun on the quartz, copper handles, the table under the window, a small scratch near the sink from where Jonah had dropped tongs and apologized 3 times. Start with the truth, I said. She ended the call politely. Meredith's apology came by email in January. Willa. Thanksgiving got out of hand. I was under enormous pressure and felt abandoned when the venue canceled. I should have communicated better about the vendors and the house. I know you felt disrespected, and I regret that the holiday became so tense. Meredith. I read it twice. I know you felt disrespected. That phrase is apology theater. It names the other person's feeling instead of the speaker's action. I replied with 3 sentences. Meredith. You gave vendors my address after I clearly said no. You described me as sensitive while attempting to use my home without consent. If you want a relationship with me, begin there. Willa? She did not answer for 4 days. Then she wrote, You're right. I'm sorry I did that. It was not everything. It was a beginning. I have learned not to confuse beginnings with repairs. The family changed after that, but not in the dramatic way stories sometimes promise. No one became a new person overnight. My mother still slips sometimes and says things like, For a small house, you really do manage. Meredith still likes control. Caleb still arrives late. Aunt Linda over-apologizes now in a way that makes me want to hand her a chair and a limit. But they do not call my house embarrassing anymore. They do not volunteer it. They do not give out my address, they ask. That may not sound like much, unless you have lived without it. The following Thanksgiving, I did not host the whole family. I hosted 12. My father came early with coffee cake again. Sophie and Claire helped me set the table. Amelia stopped by with flowers, not as a caterer, as a friend. Elaine, from work, brought wine. Mrs. Pappas brought a sweet potato casserole in a glass dish with her name taped to the bottom. My mother came too. She stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at the table. It was not large. Grandma Ruth's blue recipe box sat on the sideboard. The cranberry relish was in her bowl. The chairs did not match perfectly. The candles were short because tall candles make it hard to see people's faces. My mother touched the back of one chair. "It looks nice," she said. I waited for the rest. The qualifier, the correction, the small word that would shrink it. It did not come. "Thank you," I said. During dinner, my father told a story about Grandma Ruth burning rolls in 1993. Sophie asked for the stuffing recipe. Claire spilled water and cleaned it without anyone making her feel small. My mother ate 2 servings of apple cake. After everyone left, I stood alone in the kitchen and washed the last fork by hand, even though I have a dishwasher. Rain tapped lightly against the window again. The house smelled like butter, sage, coffee, and old wood warmed by people. I dried the fork and placed it in the drawer. Then I opened Grandma Ruth's recipe box and took out a blank card from the back. I wrote one new recipe title at the top: Small Table, Thanksgiving. Under ingredients, I wrote, 1 honest room, people who ask before moving furniture, a door that locks, enough chairs for respect. I laughed when I wrote it, quietly, not because it was clever, because it was mine. People think revenge is a grand thing. Sometimes it is not. Sometimes it is refusing to move a table. Sometimes it is asking a caterer to read the agreement out loud. Sometimes it is a community hall with fluorescent lights and enough parking. Sometimes it is the moment your father finally says, "She fixed it," and everyone hears the pronoun correctly. My family spent years measuring my house from the outside. Square footage, parking, dining capacity. Whether my life looked impressive beside theirs, they did not measure what mattered. The mortgage I paid alone, the permits I pulled, the mornings I sanded cabinet samples before work, the recipes I kept alive, the care I put into every inch because I did not have inches to waste, the difference between a house being small and a woman being easy to corner. I still live on Ashbell Lane. The porch has 2 chairs now, not because there is room for more, but because 2 is enough for the conversations I want there. The maple drops leaves into the back garden every October. The driveway still fits 1 car best. The bathroom line still exists when more than 5 people visit. The kitchen still works like a held breath finally released. Cedar Spoon Kitchen grew slowly. Amelia sends clients when they need intimate prep space. A local photographer uses the morning light for cookbook shoots. Once a month, we assemble meals for seniors, and Mrs. Pappas labels every container with handwriting so neat it could shame a printer. My mother brags about it now in ways that irritate me less than they once would have. My daughter has a licensed culinary space, she tells people, as if she discovered it in the family attic. The first time she said it, I almost corrected her in public. Then I saw her face. Proud, yes. Also uneasy. Like she knew the story under the sentence and hoped I would let the shorter version pass. I did. Not every correction has to be repeated forever. Some only need to happen once in the right room. Meredith came over one spring afternoon with Sophie. She brought tulips and stood awkwardly in the kitchen while Sophie looked through Grandma Ruth's recipes. "I never understood this place," Meredith said. "I was rinsing strawberries." "No," I said. She touched the edge of the island. "I think I thought if your life looked smaller than mine, then I had made better choices." I turned off the water. That was the first honest thing she had said without being forced by documents. "And now?" I asked. She gave a tired little smile. "Now I think your house knew what it was before any of us did." I dried my hands on a towel. "Would you like coffee?" I asked. She nodded. That is what repair looked like for us. Not hugs. Not tears. Coffee in a kitchen she had once tried to overtake. The blue recipe box stayed between us on the counter. I have thought a lot about what makes a home big enough. It is not the number of rooms. It is not whether 43 people can fit under one roof while pretending no one is uncomfortable. It is not the size of the island, the width of the driveway, or whether a mother can brag without adjusting the truth. A home is big enough when your no can stand up inside it. A home is big enough when the people who enter understand they are guests, not owners of your peace. A home is big enough when the table does not have to expand for people who only come hungry and leave critical. For years, I wanted my family to stop calling my house small. Now I understand that small was never the insult. The insult was their belief that small meant available. Small things can be strong. A key. A clause. A recipe card. A camera light. A woman's voice saying no in her own kitchen. So tell me, if the people who mocked what you built suddenly needed it, would you open the door without conditions? Or would you make them read the agreement first? Thank you for staying with me through this one. Stories like this are not really about kitchens, tables, or Thanksgiving menus. They are about the moment a woman realizes the place everyone called too small may be the one place where her truth finally has room. If that means something to you, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. There are more quiet women, more locked doors, more family tables, and more truths waiting for the right room.